Since she was a little girl, Mia had always looked up at the sky and imagined herself flying a plane. Her bedroom walls were covered in posters of airplanes, and she collected toy jets of every kind. Every time a plane flew over her village, she would run outside and wave at the sky. Her dream was clear. One day, she would become a pilot. But there was something standing in her way. Mia lived in a small town where most people spoke only Spanish. She went to a local school, studied hard, and excelled in math and science. But when she learned that pilot training programs were in English, she felt nervous. Her English was weak, and she had never spoken with a native speaker. How could she fly around the world if she couldn't understand air traffic control? One day, she visited the nearest airport and spoke to a pilot. He told her, "If you want to be a pilot, you must speak English. It's the international language of aviation." His words stayed in her heart. That day, Mia made a promise to herself. She would learn English, no matter how hard it was. She went home and told her parents about her decision. They were surprised but supportive. They didn't have much money, but they bought her an English book and a small dictionary. Her mother said, "If this is your dream, we will help you." That night, Mia opened her first English book with excitement and fear. She began learning basic words: airplane, sky, fly, control. At first, it was difficult. She didn't understand the grammar, and pronunciation was confusing. But every time she felt like giving up, she looked at the sky and reminded herself why she started. Her dream to fly was stronger than her fear of English. Chapter 2: Lessons from the Ground. Mia started waking up early every day to practice English before school. She listened to English songs, watched videos, and repeated words aloud. She downloaded a language app and practiced vocabulary during lunch breaks. She even tried speaking to herself in English at night. Every little moment became a chance to learn. At school, her friends laughed at her strange accent when she tried to speak English. "Why do you talk like that?" they joked. But Mia didn't stop. She remembered the pilot's advice: no English, no flying. She kept practicing, no matter what others said. She knew that real success often begins with small, quiet steps. Her English teacher noticed her efforts and offered to help after class. They practiced reading aviation texts and common flying terms. Mia learned words like altitude, runway, cockpit, and turbulence. Every week, she improved. She started understanding more and even wrote short paragraphs in English about airplanes. At home, her family cheered her on. Her father called her Capitana and made her flashcards with English phrases. Her little brother pretended to be her co-pilot. Their support made her stronger. Mia realized that learning English wasn't just about words. It was about believing in herself and asking for help when needed. One day, she watched a documentary about female pilots. It inspired her deeply. These women had faced many challenges, but they didn't quit. Mia wrote in her notebook, "If they can do it, I can too." She knew her journey was just beginning, but she was finally moving in the right direction. Chapter 3. The challenge grows. Months passed, and Mia could now hold basic conversations in English. But aviation English was a different story. The words were faster, more technical, and full of abbreviations. She didn't understand radio communication between pilots and towers. It made her feel frustrated. She asked herself, "Will I ever be ready?" She found online videos of real pilot conversations. At first, it sounded like another language entirely. Climb and maintain flight level 350. Cleared for takeoff, runway 27. It was overwhelming. But Mia took notes, paused, rewound, and listened again and again. Slowly, phrases began to make sense. She started writing a notebook just for aviation English. She listed new words, common phrases, and repeated them daily. She also recorded herself speaking and compared it to the native audio. She didn't like how she sounded at first, but she kept practicing. Little by little, her confidence grew. To test her skills, she joined an online group of future pilots. It was scary at first. Everyone spoke only in English. But Mia introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Mia. I want to be a pilot." Others welcomed her warmly and helped her improve. She was no longer alone. She had found a community that shared her dream. Even when she made mistakes, they corrected her kindly. Mia learned a powerful lesson. Making mistakes is part of learning. If she was brave enough to speak, she would always improve. She stopped being afraid of her accent and started focusing on her progress. Every mistake brought her closer to her goal. Chapter 4. Simulations and Success. After a year of study and practice, Mia applied for a flight school in the city. She passed the written exams, but she was nervous about the interview, conducted entirely in English. The night before, she reviewed her notes, listened to aviation dialogues, and practiced with her teacher. "I'm ready," she whispered. At the interview, she sat in front of two pilots. "Tell us why you want to be a pilot," one asked. Mia took a deep breath and answered confidently in English. She spoke clearly about her passion, her hard work, and her dream. She didn't use perfect grammar, but her message was powerful and true. The interviewers smiled. "You've got determination," they said. "And that's something every pilot needs." A week later, Mia received the letter. "You've been accepted." She jumped with joy, hugged her parents, and cried happy tears. All the effort, all the practice, all the late nights. It was worth it. Flight school was tough. There were simulations, flying hours, and non-stop English. But now, Mia felt stronger. She communicated with instructors, read flight manuals, and handled radio calls. She even helped classmates who struggled with English. Her experience had turned into strength. One day during a training flight, her instructor said, "You're doing great, Captain Mia." She smiled and looked out the window at the clouds. This wasn't just about English or flying. It was about becoming the person she always wanted to be. And she was getting closer every day. Chapter 5. Wings of Her Own. Mia's final exam was a solo flight. She had to take off, follow a set route, speak to air traffic control, and land safely. Everything in English. She sat in the cockpit, headset on, hands trembling slightly. She closed her eyes and remembered her first English word, fly. She took off smoothly, her voice steady on the radio. Tower, this is student pilot Mia, requesting takeoff clearance. The controller replied. She understood every word. The sky was calm, the plane steady. She followed all procedures, gave clear reports, and stayed calm. This was the moment she had dreamed of. When she landed, her instructor greeted her with a handshake. Congratulations, Captain. You've passed. Mia laughed and cried at the same time. She had not only learned to fly, she had also mastered the language of the skies. English was no longer a barrier. It was her tool, her ally. Back at home, she gave a speech at her old school. She told younger students, dreams need courage and effort. English opened the door for me, and it can open doors for you too. Her story inspired others. She wasn't just a pilot now. She was a role model. As she flew her first real flight as a licensed pilot, Mia looked down at the towns and cities below. Somewhere, another young girl might be looking up at the sky, dreaming. And maybe, just maybe, she would hear about Mia, the girl who learned English to fly. Chapter 6: New Skies, New Fears. After earning her pilot's license, Mia was offered a position as a co-pilot for a regional airline. It was a dream come true, but it also brought new fears. Flying with strangers, communicating in English with professionals, and handling unexpected situations made her nervous. Her heart beat faster before every flight. She reminded herself, I've come this far, I can keep going. But deep inside, she still doubted her abilities, especially her English under pressure. Her first few flights were challenging. She had to communicate with air traffic control quickly and clearly, often in unfamiliar accents. Once, she misheard an instruction and repeated the wrong heading. The captain corrected her in time, but the mistake shook her confidence. That night, she couldn't sleep. She thought, what if I'm not good enough? But she knew mistakes were part of growth, and she decided to face each challenge with courage and humility. Mia created a new plan. She recorded actual radio communications and transcribed them at home. She read aviation news in English and followed aviation podcasts. Her listening improved, and she began to understand faster. She also practiced emergency phrases and rehearsed them out loud. Mayday, mayday, engine failure, she would whisper at night. English was no longer just a language to her. It was a vital part of her job and safety. Her colleagues noticed her dedication. The captain she worked with said, "You're improving fast. Keep pushing." Hearing that gave me a new energy. She realized she wasn't alone. Many pilots had struggled with English at first, but perseverance made the difference. She began to mentor a new trainee pilot from Brazil who was also learning English. Helping someone else reminded Mia of her own journey and made her feel proud. One morning, she flew a longer route over the sea. The sky was clear, the air calm. As she adjusted the controls, she heard a message from the tower and responded without hesitation. Everything felt natural. Mia smiled. The fear hadn't disappeared, but it no longer controlled her. She had learned to fly with it and through it. Chapter 7. The International Flight. Months later, Mia was selected for her first international route. She would fly from her country to Miami as a co-pilot. It was a huge step, and she knew the expectations would be even higher. English would be essential from start to finish. She felt excited but also nervous. This was her chance to prove that she belonged among the best. She reviewed procedures, documents, and airport codes for days. On the morning of the flight, Mia walked into the cockpit with determination. The captain, an experienced pilot from Canada, greeted her warmly. "Welcome aboard. I've heard good things about you." She smiled and replied confidently, "Thank you, Captain. I'm ready." During the briefing, she understood every word. That simple fact filled her with pride. She had worked for this moment for years. During the flight, Mia handled all radio communications. The controllers in Miami spoke fast, but she kept up. She didn't panic, even when turbulence shook the plane. She repeated clear instructions, gave reports, and confirmed landings. The captain turned to her and said, "Excellent work. You're solid." Mia couldn't stop smiling. All those nights studying English had brought her to this very moment. When they landed, Mia stepped out into the airport and looked around. Signs in English, announcements in English, yet she understood everything. It was a surreal feeling. She was no longer the girl who feared grammar and accents. She was a pilot who could navigate both the skies and the language. She called her parents and said in tears, "I made it. I really did." That night in the hotel, she opened her old notebook. The pages were filled with words she once struggled with: altitude, approach, contact tower. She ran her fingers over them and whispered, "Thank you." She knew her journey wasn't over. New routes, new languages, new skies awaited her. But she had something now that no one could take away: confidence. Chapter 8. Teaching Others to Fly. As the months went by, Mia became one of the most respected young pilots in her airline. Not just because of her skills, but because of her story. Many new students, especially those who struggled with English, looked up to her. They asked, "How did you do it?" And she always answered, "I never gave up. I studied every day, and I believed I could." One day, the airline invited her to speak at a seminar for young pilots from different countries. Standing on stage, microphone in hand, she looked at the crowd and remembered her younger self. She began, "I was once afraid of English. I thought I couldn't do it. But I learned that every pilot speaks two languages, aviation and English. And you can learn both." The room applauded her courage and honesty. She decided to create an online course, English for Future Pilots. It included videos, exercises, and her personal tips. She shared her recordings, vocabulary books, and stories. Students from all over Latin America joined. They sent her messages like, "You gave me hope, and I thought I was alone, but your story shows it's possible." Mia's dream was no longer just about flying. It was also about lifting others. In one of her videos, she said, "You don't need to be perfect to start. You just need to begin. Speak with mistakes, read with confusion, but never stop." Her words spread through pilot forums and aviation schools. She became a symbol, not just of success, but of determination and heart. She had turned her fear into fuel and her journey into a guide for others. Late one night, as she prepared for another flight, Mia looked at the stars from her window. She thought of the girl who once ran outside to wave at airplanes. That girl was now a pilot, a teacher, and a voice of hope. English had once been her biggest obstacle. Now it was her bridge to the world.